Top of the morning to you all. This is MD from the KliqPod family. That's Mean Dean from the Outsiders podcast. I want to go ahead and start off this Mean Dean's A through Z pay-per-view review with a couple updates. Number one, we are changing our name officially away from TOP or the Outsiders podcast to KliqPodcast or KliqPod, and you guys have seen that around a lot as well. The reason for this change is because there are other podcasts that do have the Outsiders podcast, and it's kind of diluting where our Google rankings go and how our fans find us. So we are officially changing it to KliqPodcast or the KliqPodcast. You can also find us at KliqPod on Twitter, the Outsiders Podcast on Facebook, and as well as the Outsiders Podcast on YouTube. We are in the middle of changing these things, and for some reason Facebook said, no, you cannot change your name because people won't find you then. Okay, Facebook, put it back, Zuckerberg. You don't need to worry about what we're doing, okay, buddy? So today, on the Mean Dean's A through Z pay-per-view review, the A stands for Armageddon, and I'm just going to say this for the rest of the week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it's going to be all Armageddon all the way up to the very last one, and then we're going to go to the Bs, and I'm super excited for the Bs. I just sent out a list this weekend for what the Bs are going to be. Bash at the Beach, Bad Blood, Backlash, Battleground, Barely Legal, so many titles. Probably, I think, about 30 or 35 pay-per-views that I have to watch, which is going to be rough. So I imagine we won't get through the Bs for another probably month or month and a half, 2 months, something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and start off. And also the other update I wanted to bring to your attention is that I've noticed that I read pay-per-view reviews and almost sound kind of bored doing it. And the reason why I say that is because when I talk about matches, as I'm going to speak about the first match for Armageddon 2004, is where we left off. The first match is RVD and Rey Mysterio versus Rene, Dupree and Kenzo, Suzuki for the tag titles. What's great about that? Like, that's what I'm saying. It seems boring to me sometimes, and I don't want that to be something that the fans see in me as well. I love wrestling. I just don't like to watch the pay-per-views that have really boring, shitty matches on it. But this is part of the Mean Dean's A through Z pay-per-view review. We gotta sacrifice. We gotta do this. So instead of taking what happened in the match, I'm actually just gonna talk about points to the matches now. Some of those points might be about something else that the wrestlers in the match actually did, and some of the points might be in the match itself or storyline related. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Again, match number one, RVD and Rey Mysterio, who are the current SmackDown Tag Team Champions, versus Rene Dupree and Kenzo Suzuki. Now, my first note, just right off the bat, is Kenzo Suzuki is just a super forgettable character. I guess I'm saying this in terms of if you ever go back and watch Armageddon 2004, you'll be like, who the fuck is this guy? Basically, he is built like a brick shithouse, but he looks like he came from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 from the 90s. Just like a huge guy, but just not very talented, really. You know, and the other part, too, that I'm really starting to hate is really that Cole still, even at that time, very much breaks down moves. He said, I honestly can't tell you what the move was. It was some Rey Mysterio leg drop thing, but he called it like the 420 because you go this way and you go that way. And he was really selling the move based on dumbing down for the audience, which was all pay-per-view. So it was amazing. All pay-per-view, Cole is breaking down moves and naming them as well, obviously. And really, the rest of this match was RVD and Rey Mysterio doing their thing. Now, two guys, two great athletes, two great champions, doing what they do, high-flying, collaborative. It was an okay match. I hated Rene Dupree. I just don't like his character. I thought it was stupid. Bringing out the poodle. And Kenzo Suzuki, I totally forgot he existed until I watched this. And he's not in any other Armageddons that I saw. Winner, RVD and Mysterio, still. So that was the end of the first match. It was okay. I mean, I'm not trying to downplay it and make it sound like it was a terrible match. It really wasn't. It's just there was no interest for me. And maybe I need to start going back and watching the Go Home Raws and SmackDowns up to these pay-per-views to kind of get caught up on the storyline ahead of time. That's just an incredible amount of content. If I start doing that, I won't be done with these pay-per-view reviews for another 3 years. So they transition into the Tough Enough finale. Tough Enough, if you've never heard of that name before, essentially what Tough Enough is it's competition to become a WWE superstar. Now, that year's Tough Enough in 2004, I don't know if you guys remember. If you do, put it in the comments now before I start saying them. See if you get it right. I'll throw you a shout out on the next set of reviews, or JG will as well. So, drum roll. This Tough Enough had The Miz, or Mike Mizanin, Ryback, and Daniel Puder, who was a UFC guy at the time. They ran some promo for Daniel Puder too. It was like, hey, you're either gonna get knocked out or you're gonna get knocked out. Hey Miz, you're talking lots of trash. Can't wait to get in the ring and bang. It was really terrible. It was funny. It was terrible, though. And also, if you don't remember, Daniel Puder, now at this time, too, Kurt Angle had some Kurt Angle Invitational where he said, hey, anybody come to me. I will fight you, and I will destroy you. So Daniel Puder was one of those guys, was all the Tough Enough guys. And Daniel Puder got Kurt Angle in a Kimura lock and almost broke his arm. Now, that's real shit right there. Because if you ever go back and watch it, it was on SmackDown. Kurt Angle got up and got in his face, and they almost got in a real legit fight. Go check that out. So before they even get to the Tough Enough finale, and they call it like the finale, the finale was actually done on the following SmackDown because they had to vote, or it was like a vote for the fans. Kurt Angle comes out, and Armageddon was typically always done around Christmas time or whatever holiday you celebrate around that time in December. So they always had Santa Claus on Armageddon's, which is sometimes very excruciating. So Kurt Angle comes out. This is one of my favorite Kurt Angle interviews and promos and all that stuff, mainly because he was playing such a good heel at the time that he played it out very, very well. In this one, he calls out Santa Claus, and he throws shade at Taz, too. He's like, oh yeah, Taz is an elf, he came from the North Pole, too. Anyway, he's basically saying to Santa Claus, I hate you. Because every time I go on the road, bust my ass, and I go see my daughter, all she wants to talk about is you and the presents she's gonna get. She doesn't care about me. He's like, I bust my ass every night, you work one night a week. Then he just makes quick work of Santa Claus. I don't even know who it was, honestly. Sometimes you had those where it was like, oh shit, that's Stone Cold, or that's Mick Foley. No, I have no fucking clue who this Santa Claus was. But he destroyed him. It looked like it could have been Brother Love, though. I'm not entirely sure. Now we finally get into the match. The Miz versus Daniel Puder in what they called a Dixie dog fight, which is essentially just a boxing match, right? And I was actually really excited for this after I remembered, oh shit, this is actually happening. I forgot. And Daniel Puder and the Miz hated each other, honestly. It's just a general boxing match. And it was pretty clear that Puder sucked on the mic. The Miz was great on the mic. A lot more, I don't know, enthusiasm, I suppose. I didn't know at the time if Daniel Puder lost this one or won it. So my early prediction, even though I've seen this in the past, I don't remember it whatsoever, was that Puder lost because of the Kurt Angle scandal. We'll get to that. And right out the gate, Miz is a fucking awful boxer. He is swinging for the fences. He's not landing anything. I'd say maybe he landed about 10% of his shots, maybe. And they weren't even on the button either. Both of them, though, like even after the first round, it was like a minute a round or something like that. Don't get me wrong, I'm no athlete here, okay? Like I've boxed before, though. I know how easy it can be to gas you out, especially if you're swinging. You know, they just looked gassed as fuck, honestly, which was fine. It was a boxing match. What I found interesting about this is that it's funny how for a wrestling company, sports entertainment, to not have a wrestling match or a sports entertainment match, is that what you call it, for the winner of Tough Enough. That was strange. It had to be a boxing match. It was almost like they were forcing Miz out of the competition knowing that Puder would beat him the fuck up. And most people were booing the whole time, though. It was just strange. The whole thing was strange. The weirdest part, though, was that if this was a real fight, let's just say hypothetically, and it looked like it, they're swinging at each other's heads, how is Daniel Puder not putting the Miz out quick if he's a fighter? If his previous profession is fighting, how did the Miz go the distance? That was strange. But they went ahead and let the fans vote based on cheers and boos. Daniel Puder won based on cheers. The Miz thanked everybody. That's not what we're used to. And then that was it. Not much else. So after that they had something backstage. It was just a quick conversation between Eddie Guerrero and Booker T. It was a great conversation. Honestly, not to be emotional about it, but it was, heartwarming to see Eddie Guerrero talk, and it was just one of those things. Like, I remember where I was exactly and who told me that Eddie Guerrero had passed, and that was just kind of heartbreaking. And I didn't cry or get upset or anything, but it was a shitty day. You know what I mean? Like, for a guy as talented as he is. The next match after that interview would be the Basham brothers versus Charlie Haas and Bob Holly. or Hardcore Holly. I mean, you could definitely tell that this is a product of the Teddy Long era. Crazy amounts of mixed tags, crazy amounts of tag matches all together, but this match just wasn't very good. And you could tell. I don't know if any of you remember the Basham brothers. They were just not a great tag team. It was the stupid... They really ran with the twin magic thing, if you know what I'm saying. And really, the Bellas were the only ones who were good at that. Because even you had Edge do that later on down the road, too, where it was Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins that looked sort of like him, I guess. And I thought that was kind of a stupid thing, too. But anyway, but that's what I'm saying is one of the things that I noticed, and one of the questions I asked myself in the notes was, what was WWE's affinity with the whole twin brother tag team thing? It was just very strange. You also had DOA, who had that as well. There's a few other ones as well that probably find out. It's, I don't know. The only successful ones were the Bellas, in my opinion. And they weren't even a successful tag team, to be honest. It was more of a singles thing that they were better at. Winners, Basham Brothers, moving on. Now, this next match was probably my favorite match of the night. Not a match that was amazing from a technical standpoint, but probably my favorite match of the night was John Cena, the Doctor of Thugonomics, versus Jesus with Carlito for the U.S. Title. And that was a street fight. It was, I don't know, I just love Thugonomics John Cena. There's something about his character. I can't help it. It's awesome. I forgot how good also the Cena-Carlito rivalry was. If you ever go back to 2004, check that rivalry out. It is definitely one of the best ones I have seen in quite some time. And really, again, this is Word Life John Cena too. Came out with those old WrestleMania logos that said WL or Word Life on it. I used to have a wristband, Word Life wristband. And one of the notes I put on here was that I just miss the Doctor of Thugonomics. And then this, fun fact, actually as well, this was the debut of the spinner U.S. title belt. It was his first modified belt, and the U.S. title belt spinner by far, hands down, was one of my favorite modified belts of all time because the entire plate spun. It was fucking amazing. But this was also a street fight too, so John Cena early was great in these moments. He was great in matches with JBL. He was great in matches with The Undertaker. He was just really good at these because he had a lot of passion. That's what I liked. You don't see a lot of genuine passion from John Cena anymore. You just see a lot of curb your enthusiasm bullshit from him. But man, he was throwing nasty kendo shots at Jesus to the point where he broke the kendo stick, and that's how you know, right? And all of a sudden we got blood. I mean, we figured with the shots that John Cena's throwing, there's going to be blood no matter what. And I counted. There was literally only one shot from Jesus. It's funny that I'm saying Jesus. I don't know if you guys are picking up on that. It's just funny to me that I'm saying that. Sorry, but there's only one shot from him. Period. The whole match. No other offense from him. John Cena basically ran the yard on this one, and he won still U.S. champion. He also did the FU. For those of you who don't know what the FU is, it's the attitude adjustment. Way better when you call it the FU. Match 4 was a throwaway match, but I want to start by mentioning this. We had already had a Charlie Haas match earlier on the card, but for some reason this pay-per-view really focused around him very heavily storyline-wise. And leading up to this, I know for a fact, and I do remember this, that Charlie Haas was in a storyline with two women. It was Jackie or Miss Jackie, and it wasn't Jacqueline. It was a very pretty blonde lady, Jackie, versus Dawn Marie. And those two were fighting over Charlie Haas. Why? I have no idea, as he is an ugly human being. And then he just ended up being the referee for this match. So not only he had a match earlier, he was a referee for this ladies' match. You could really start to see the transition from the Trish Stratuses, the Litas, all those women who fought really, really hard to become something in the midst of the men taking over all of wrestling. Now we're back to Jackie and Dawn Marie. How good do you think the match was on a scale from 1 to 10? Go ahead and put it in the comment. 0. It wasn't good at all. And the story wasn't good enough to hold up the shitty wrestling, really. And that part sucked. Dawn Marie was a winner, and then all of a sudden, Charlie Haas calls off his engagement from Jackie and said that he was definitely making love to Dawn Marie, but making love to Jackie was like making love to a dead, wet fish. Let me say that again. Making love to Jackie was like making love to a dead, wet fish. Pretty hardcore, Charlie Haas. So he asked Dawn Marie to marry him. Before she could say anything, he's like, no, you're both sluts and I'm leaving. Where's the payoff to the storyline? Like, what were you trying to accomplish with the story? You literally used so much TV time up for this during SmackDown and the pay-per-view that there was no payoff, and we're all supposed to like cheer and jump up out of our seats. Go Charlie! Weird, right? Match number 5, Kurt Angle versus Luther Reigns. Well, it's Kurt Angle and Luther Reigns versus Mark Jindrak, and the Big Show. Now, I don't know if you guys remember Luther Reigns, one of the ugliest faces ever in wrestling. It was like, you know those challenges that people do now, where they put their lips inside of a cup and then they suck it in for like 10 minutes and they take it off and their lips are all huge? That's what Luther Reigns looked like all the time. Jacked as fuck. He was a big guy. He was a terrible wrestler, but he just looked ugly. He was just an ugly guy. In fact, I put in my notes that I hate Luther Reigns' face as much as Vince hated Christian's face, which is bad. It was just another terrible match. I mean, again, I say this is a product of Teddy Long, a product of new women's wrestling. It just wasn't good. And this is the trend all the way up, I'd say, until about 2013 and maybe even 2015, I would say. So there's a long gap there where it just was not very great. It should have just been Kurt and the Big Show. That's really who fought the whole time. I mean, I don't know why they had to put Jindrak and Luther Reigns in there. Really didn't make a lot of sense to me. But one cool thing, the only cool thing in this match was Big Show pulled an F5 out. I'm sure that was a call out for Brock Lesnar. So winner, Big Show and Jindrak. Does anybody remember Funaki? He is now on, I believe, is the Korean or Cantonese table. When they show all the tables at the pay-per-views, who's doing the announcing for each language, Funaki is there. But Funaki used to be SmackDown #1. And he did his own interview where he kept switching sides and talking to himself about what he's going to do in his match. Gotta love Funaki. Wasn't super great at wrestling, but very, very, very entertaining. Match number 6, Spike Dudley versus Funaki for the Cruiserweight title. And I'm going to read this as I put it down, because this is the only note I had for this match. I can totally tell where steam is and isn't. For instance, like in the Haas storyline, so much TV time went into it for a 3-minute match, and very little TV time went into the Funaki Spike Cruiserweight title, and they get a 10-minute match. This is where I'm confused of booking in WWE at this time, which was, where are you putting where is the efficiency gain? Where is the payoff? Where's the quality? It just doesn't exist at all at that time, because you put so much time into a match, so much time into a story. You get 3 minutes on a pay-per-view, there's no payoff, and yet Spike Dudley and Funaki are getting a 10-minute Cruiserweight title match that had no build-up whatsoever. Literally, they made the match on the pay-per-view card. Isn't that weird? Match number 7, JBL versus Booker T versus Eddie Guerrero versus The Undertaker for the world title. I'm sorry, this is WWE title. I forgot there was a distinction back then. And one thing I noticed also throughout the whole pay-per-view, but was more relevant in this match because there are big guys in there, was that the match just sounded stiffer than it normally would. It almost sounds like when you hit it, it doesn't have a lot of give, which is kind of interesting. Thought that was noteworthy. And Eddie was so good at what he did in ring and out of the ring, but in ring, in this match, he held his own with The Undertaker, and every time him and The Undertaker came to blows, that was the best part of the match. And they were just so good together, so much chemistry. I really wish there could have been something bigger with that. And then, of course, Guerrero pulls out this ladder, frog splash from the top of the ladder. Amazing. And there's a guy who I believe had a huge, it was like a rivalry or something with The Undertaker, Heidenreich. He's a big guy, red trunks, red knee pads and elbow pads, as well as super white hair. Heidenreich, big guy, came in, interfered in the match, beat the shit out of The Undertaker a bunch, and JBL just happened to cover. That's it for 2004 Armageddon. I guess, as you can tell, it's not a great one, but I highly suggest you go back and either rewatch the John Cena versus Jesus match, the street fight for the U.S. title, or go back and watch The Miz versus Daniel Puder, which is also a good one. All right, everybody, that is it for me, MD, for the KliqPod family, Mean D and the Outsiders podcast. Don't forget, we're always on Podomatic, iTunes, YouTube. Check us out. And coming April 8th, live on YouTube, WrestleMania pre-show. Me and JG will be together. Look out for the promo on YouTube. Thanks, everybody, for listening. You have a wonderful day.